How did confinement affect people? I decided to talk about this because I had people in confinement of all ages, from my nephew who is 6 to my grandma who is 80 years old, and I could see how they were affected. Also, I looked for information or article related to this topic and I saw comments from people who felt tired of confinement, and I thought this would be an interesting topic. I'm going to start this speaking with a question, okay? How did you feel when we had to be at home because there was a dangerous virus outside? Okay, actually, that virus continued here with us. But we decided to forget the total confinement and start to do our daily activities. The only change is that now we use masks to do them. With the confinement, sometimes I was annoyed by so much monotony at home. Wake up, eat, take classes, eat, do homework, and sleep. Wake up, eat, take classes, and blah, blah, blah. Studies indicate that people in confinement can experience exhaustion, frustration, irritability, and anxiety. It's important knowing that confinement affects people of all ages. So I'm going to talk about how it did that. Being at home can sound good, but is it as good as it sounds? Confinement was applied for all people, right? From children to the elderly. So let's start talking about children. That situation affected areas of neurodevelopment in early childhood, from movement to social relationships and learning. Think that the fact of not being able to interact with other children or with their teachers, plus can go out to play and also don't understand what is happening, generate anxiety and frustration that obviously children can manage because they doesn't have the tools to do it. The confinement generate a negative impact on the psychological health of children. But now, how can you imagine teenagers were affected? We all stopped doing mindful and worldwide activities, right? However, for teenagers or young people, not participating in social events such as parties and concerts, etc., cause them emotional discomfort. As a result, they manifest a series of emotional reactions such irritability or sadness. And let me tell you that I can say that because I have a cousin who present those reactions. As I told you, confinement was applied for all ages. So think about adults. Adults are usually people with more duties at home or at work. With the confinement, adults left their offices and tried to adapt a place in their house to work, the famous home office. But there were difficulties with that because there were employees who didn't have the space to work. Imagine that they had to share the table with the kids who were doing homework in that moment. They didn't have gadgets to work, and the position of being all day in front of a computer on the kitchen table was uncomfortable. The physiological and emotional health of many people was seriously affected because remember that stress, irritability, and worries can affect your health, causing diseases. And at last but not least, the elderly population. Older people were an especially vulnerable group, so they were a priority population for confinement and social distancing during pandemic. The measures of confinement in the elderly induce negative effects on their health related to physical inactivity, cognitive deterioration, and dementia. We know that adapt to new changes can result difficult for people of that age. So they had alteration in sleep pattern, nutritional habits, relationships, and other factors. For example, my grandma decided to sleep at 2 a.m. Before confinement, let me tell you that she slept at 10:30 p.m. Okay, now we know the different ways that confinement affect the society. But let me tell you what we did as a family in order to confront it. Just in case you continue in confinement, maybe this advice serves to you. Okay, number one, when were stressful, we search an activity to relax. For example, my mom played an instrument. My nephew play video games. You know that kids love video games. And in my case, I did exercise. The second one is if you can't see your friends yet, okay, don't worry, organize a video call. I did that with my friends and we talked for hours and hours and it was so funny. And the last advice is something we discovered months after pandemic start. And I think this is the most important because, well, I love my grandma and I know that you love your grandparents. So if you have old people in your family, please don't forget them and help them if you notice they were affected. For example, play board games to work memory and motivate them to move a little. Let me tell you that with my grandma, sometimes we dance in the morning, for example. That's a good activity for your grandparents. To finish this speaking, fortunately, we can go out with mask, obviously, but we can go out. But keep taking care of yourself because the virus is not gone, guys. So that's all for my speaking.